Hi there, this is Samuel, one of the co-founders of Portfolio Metrics, and in this short video I will show you how you can upload your first strategy in our portfolio optimization tool. You want to use this tool when you already have a strategy or if you already have a portfolio, but now you want to optimize the portfolio allocation of it. So what you do is you go to our tool and you add every single asset that you have, for example, the Vanguard Total Bond Market Index and a specific allocation of it, for example, 20%. And to speed up process, I've already defined a portfolio. And in this example, I want to optimize the portfolio, which is the following: 35% of the S&P 500, 20% of the emerging markets, 9% I've invested in 20 plus years treasury bonds, and 12% each in Apple, Microsoft, and Nvidia. Because the main goal of this tool is to optimize the portfolio allocation, one of the key functions of our tool is that you can set specific constraints on the allocation for the individual assets, but also for groups. For example, I decided that I don't want to have a higher exposure of the S&P 500 more than 40%. But at the same time, I want to have always at least 20% of the S&P 500s. I can enter these two constraints, minimum value, maximum value, here in these fields. Another constraint on an individual asset level that I want to have is that no stock has a higher exposure than 15%. So I will enter this here into the maximum field. Yep. You can also give constraints to groups. For example, I decided that I don't want to have a higher exposure in the individual stocks that are in the technology sector. So what I can do is I can label individual assets. For example, I can label these three stocks with the label tech, and you see already down there that here the group constraints will appear. And here you can then define the minimum constraint and the maximum constraint. For example, I decided that I want to give this group a maximum constraint of 40%. So yeah, now our strategy is uploaded. We have defined the constraints on an individual asset level, but also on a group level. Let's go to the next section. Down here you can see some portfolio options. For example, this is for our premium users. You can activate the custom expected returns or the custom volatility. For example, you already know them for the individual assets, so you can have an even more personalized approach here. Let's go to options. We can now decide in what date range we want to backtest our portfolio in. In my example, I decided that I want to backtest from today back 20 years in the past. Here in the section financial options, then you need to decide the benchmark you want your portfolio to compare to. We have a couple of thousand different benchmarks here. In my example, I want to compare it to the Vanguard Total World Stock Index, VT. Here you see the risk-free rate. I also have a risk-free rate for my portfolio, which is 2.5%, which I can then integrate here. Data options. You can also decide if you want to reinvest your dividends in the strategy or not. It's typically activated. In my portfolio, in my strategy, I also want to have it activated. Here you see fill missing price data. This is a data function because we have a couple of thousand of assets. Some of the assets might be more foreign and they might have some data holes. You can activate it then, and then the gap is filled basically. Here the modeling option is another very important option because it defines how returns are estimated, or how the covariance is estimated. You can see here we have 6 different returns estimation methods and 8 different covariance estimation method. When you click here on the question mark, they are also explained and what they mean. For example, the sample mean is the traditional arithmetic mean of historical returns. It's simple, but it's sensitive to outliers, for example. Or you can use the exponentially weighted mean, which means weighted average that gives more importance to recent observations, useful when recent data is considered more relevant. So you can basically personalize the modeling options according to the goal that you have in mind. So yeah, now the strategy is almost complete. We just need to define if we want to rebalance and how often. I want to rebalance monthly, so I can click it here. Yeah, the strategy is done. We can submit it, but also we can add in the same report if we want. That's for the premium users, several other portfolios to have a more comprehensive report. For example, I can integrate into the same report the Fang portfolio and have it then submitted. Thank you for listening. I hope the video helps. Have a good day.